Well, good morning, everybody. It's just gone 10 o'clock, and so I think we'll start the webinar on time. My name's Callan Chabella. I'm the CEO of Inference Solutions, and if you've been to any of these webinars before, you might have heard me before. Split these up with Mike Gorman and a couple of others on the technical team to try and get as much content out into the market as we can. Today's session is on plugging gaps in your cloud telephony strategy, and it's specifically focused on BroadSoft-based service providers, so those service providers and carriers that are running BroadWorks as a soft switch. And we're going to go through some of the challenges that we see in the market and some of the ways that we can help you address those challenges. Okay, so what do we mean by plugging the gaps? And with this, as I said, we're going to focus very much on BroadWorks and BroadSoft. So as you might be aware, Inference works very closely with BroadSoft, and looking at BroadSoft out in the market, it's fairly easy to see that it is the undisputed market-leading soft switch. You know, whether you're running a few thousand users all the way up to millions of users, BroadWorks is now deployed in over 70 countries. And it's deployed with more than 600 service providers and carriers, and presumably you are one of those. Despite that, competition is always present, and people often forget that we're still relatively early on in the sort of cloud migration journey. And in fact, if you look at the Dimension Data Contact Center benchmark report that comes out every year, and you look at this year's stats, you see that 56.6% of contact centers are still in the planning phase of cloud migration. And that is an awful lot of people that are deciding when and on what switch they're going to migrate to. So winning this cloud migration trend is really the key to growing market share. And BroadSoft has historically looked to its partners to complement its UC offering, and really that's what this webinar is all about. Inference as a long-term partner of BroadSoft, what are we doing in this space, and how are we helping plugging these gaps in your cloud telephony strategy? And if you're interested in some of those stats there, it's a Dimension Data Global Contact Center benchmark report from earlier this year. And also, what do we mean by cloud migration? So by that, we're talking about the fact that every single day, hundreds of companies across the globe, dozens, if not hundreds of companies in your own markets are deciding each and every day whether this is the day that they're going to migrate from their traditional telephony platform to the cloud, or if they're already in the cloud, whether they're going to migrate from the existing provider they have to you. Now, this could be something quite sophisticated, from moving from a premise-based traditional PBX through to a cloud PBX. So you might be thinking someone like an Avaya or someone like that, moving away from that to a cloud provider. Or it may just be changing the transport that they're using from ISDN to SIP trunking, or going from a premise-based UC platform to a cloud UC platform. The rate of cloud migration in the market has varied between 13% and 20% in recent years, and it really depends on what sort of reports you're reading and looking at in terms of what the actual rate is, but it's always around about in that range, 13 to 20%. But there's still a long way to go in terms of the number of ends that are on-premise versus in the cloud. From an Inference's perspective, one of the things that we see to be the limiting factor in cloud migration is what we call feature parity. If you look at the typical premise-based PBX, they've had decades of development, decades of features being added into what they're able to offer. So by this, we're looking at people like Avaya, Genesis, Interactive Intelligence, which is obviously now part of Genesis. But these are very feature-rich platforms. They're also very expensive platforms, and therefore the willingness for customers to move away from them because they've spent so much on them, you need a good reason to do so. The other thing is that the features that customers are using on these platforms are often integrated into their back-end processes, and they're critical to the way they operate their business. So if they're moving to a cloud platform and those features are not available, that's a big hurdle that they need to overcome before they can make that move. Okay, so let's have a look at a few of these examples that we're talking about here. All right, the first one that we see all the time within the BroadSoft service provider customer base, in terms of whether a potential customer is going to move to a BroadSoft-based provider, is identification and verification. So yeah, a typical statement here is we use an IVR to verify callers before they get to our agents. Doing this when they get to the agent is just too expensive. And they can do this in a number of different ways. They could be taking wallet-style questions from the caller. What is your date of birth? What is your customer number? What is your mother's maiden name? These sorts of things, and doing it in an automated fashion. If they're on the sophisticated end of the spectrum, they may be all going all the way through to using something like voice biometrics, where they're listening to the way the caller speaks and authenticating them that way. And these types of things are relatively commonplace. Biometrics not so much, but wallet questions absolutely. As a way of doing that authentication first before they get to the agent. You're talking about agent talk times, easily at $1 a minute of talk time. Doing the ID and V aspect of that in the IVR prior to getting to the agent is going to save you 30 seconds at a minimum. That's a lot of money. That's a very easy business case. So if you're moving to a cloud platform where suddenly identification verification has to be done again with the agents, that often just is not going to work from a business case perspective. That's just one example. Another one would be proactive customer care. So this is where the company is initiating the contact with the customer. They're not waiting for the customer to ring into the call center or ring into their hosted endpoints. And they're doing things like, as it says here, we let customers know when their bill's due, their subscriptions due, their prescriptions due automatically, and we use these reminders to drive our revenue. Again, outbound dialing is a fairly significant part of a lot of these premise-based platforms, and one of the big reasons people use them. So when you're looking to a cloud solution, are you able to continue to use this proactive customer care interaction with your customers, and we'll show how this is done later on with Inference and BroadSoft. And then the third one would be something like queue management. So typical statement here, we have long queues during the holiday season. That's where we're about to enter that right now, if not already in it. Offering the customer a callback is really important to us. So hold your place in the queue and have us ring you back when you're at the front of the queue. This is a feature that you typically see on an Avaya, a Genesis, an Interactive Intelligence, but you don't see it natively when you move to, say, a BroadWorks platform. And so again, Inference will show how we add this functionality back into BroadWorks to get this feature parity back. So just to reiterate, none of these features are done by the soft switch, and if these features are important to you and your customers, you will need to find a solution, or that will be one of the customers that decides, no, this is not the platform for me, I'm just going to stay with my premise-based PBX, or I'm going to move, look elsewhere and move to a cloud platform that does offer these features. So Inference has been working with BroadWorks and BroadSoft since about 2012. We provide these features that we've talked about already and many, many more for dozens of BroadWorks-based carriers today, whether they're Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, it doesn't really matter. We will work across all sizes of carrier and service provider. And we really work hard to allow carriers to deliver on the true promise of what it is to be a cloud provider. So from our perspective, that is, how do you be really, really fast? And we'll have services up and running in seconds, and we'll show you that in a few minutes. How do you have an always improving experience? How do you have a platform that continues to improve over time? One of the big limitations of premise-based PBXs is the cost of maintenance and what it costs to keep those platforms up to date. And in many organizations, they simply don't keep them up to date because of those costs. And so what they've bought years ago is what they have years later. It's not improved over time. It hasn't got better. It doesn't have any new features. And thirdly, a truly elastic solution. So let's not, again, comparing the old premise-based CapEx models to OpEx, let's not have everyone invest up front. Let's allow them just to pay for what they use on a consumption-based model. And again, Inference, when working with service providers, allows that true, genuine SaaS model, month-to-month consumption-based billing. So the three cloud platforms that we're talking about when we're talking about Inference products, Inference Studio, Inference Q4Me, and Inference React. Just looking at the list of attendees today, I can see that a lot of the names on the list there are familiar, and typically when it comes to Inference, people least on the list we have here, thinking about Inference Studio. So this is our full service creation environment for IVR. Speech recognition, text-to-speech, PCI compliance, outbound dialing. Again, just a lot of features there that plug the gaps that a customer coming from a premise-based environment may have when they're looking to a broad service provider and saying, well, what do I get if I move to a hosted handset? The second platform is Inference Queue for Me, which is our virtual queuing platform for BroadWorks. Simply the hold my place in the queue type functionality. Again, a lot of businesses are just or have used this approach and have used this sort of technology for years and years in their premise-based environment and want to have it when they move to the cloud. Inference Queue for Me allows you to do that in a very cost-effective manner. And then thirdly, our newest platform, which is Inference React, which is a full XSI management layer for BroadWorks and BroadWorks switches. Basically, it allows you to basically deliver on the promise of true CTI, so computer telephony integration, information passing and intelligent routing, all those things that people have come to expect from their expensive premise-based system, be able to deliver that on top of a BroadWorks soft switch. And we won't be talking too much about React today, but if you're interested in React, there'll be future webinars just on React itself. Okay, so just a quick refresh on how do we actually integrate with a BroadWorks-based carrier. If you look on the left-hand side here, we have the carrier core network, and on the right-hand side, we have our inference points of presence in the green boxes. Obviously, we have multiple points of presence in North America. We have multiple points of presence in Asia. We're building multiple points of presence in Europe right now, and if you look at the on the left-hand side, the carrier core network, this is where your BroadWorks infrastructure is, your application servers, your network servers, and so on. And we're literally just having carriers extend their networks over the form of BroadWorks SIP trunking to our points of presence. So if we pick the two here in North America, there is Ashburn, Virginia, and Chicago, Illinois as POP 1 and POP 2. And then on our side, we're basically running the same kind of infrastructure that the BroadWorks carrier would run in the form of BroadWorks media servers, but we're running lots and lots of media servers in a clustered architecture to allow us to handle these calls and present IVR in an automated way, as well as all of the resources necessary to add the features that we're talking about. So whether that be speech recognition licensing or text-to-speech licensing or outbound dialer licensing and answering machine detection, or voice biometrics licensing, as well as lots of other things that are available on the platform today. That is all part of the SaaS offering, and is all a consumption-based license. You basically get access to whatever the platform can do based on the amount of capacity that you buy from Inference on a month-to-month basis. And then, of course, everything is made available through a web browser, and so you can do full configuration of solutions. Customers can configure their own solutions and deliver on that other promise, which is how do I get something up and running really, really fast, and how do I get control? You can obviously, customers can do this themselves within the Studio environment. For those that are not using our PCI aspect of the platform yet, within each of these POPs is also, and you'll see this in the white box at the bottom here, a dedicated PCI segment. So this allows you to do fully PCI level 1 compliant payments in Studio, collecting money, paying bills, that sort of stuff, and do that within a PCI compliant manner, and obviously pick your PCI payment gateway that you'd like to transact on. Okay, so enough with slides. Let's actually get and build some solutions now. So earlier on, I talked about sort of three gaps that we often see in the market and that we'd like to fill. The first one being identification and verification. The second one being proactive customer care, and the third one being queue management. Now, we try and keep these webinars nice and short, somewhere between 30 minutes and 45 minutes, but we'll literally be able to build 3 services in that time. We can start with identification through voice biometrics, move on to an outbound reminder service, and then finally queue management using Queue for Me. So what I'm going to do is just switch over to Studio now. I've just logged into my account, so this is just my demonstration account, and if you're familiar with Studio, this interface will be very familiar to you. Basically, the main concepts here are the concept of a script. So we have 101 scripts in this particular account. A script is just an IVR that you've built, and you can have as many scripts as you like. The second concept is service numbers. In this case, we've used 3 service numbers, and they're currently have been mapped to scripts. So you can see here I've got an outbound reminder script, an ID&V script using biometrics, and a Q4Me testing script here. Now, if we wanted to build a new script, it's really simple. Go up to scripts, click the plus button, and give the script a name. We'll call it Webinar Today, and we'll tag our script as a demonstration so we can delete it later. We'll pick the language we like, US English. We'll pick the voice we like. Let's just go with the default voice, which is Rebecca, and click on Add. And this is going to now build for us a placeholder in Studio. There it is, Webinar Today. And I'm going to click on that and just show you how fast it is to build something. Okay. Now, in the case of the 3 demos that we've got in the portal that I've already attached a phone number to, all 3 of them have been built using this copy from call flow from template function. So this is just a way for your customers to get up and running really, really quickly by picking a commonly used service or commonly requested service and just in a matter of a few clicks get a service that they can actually talk to on your network. Okay, so if I wanted to build something, for example, let's have a look at something like ID&V. I can click on ID&V, identification and verification, and click on continue. And this is now going to build us a complete ID&V IVR. Okay, so something that you would typically see in a premise-based via Genesis or interactive intelligence type platform, you can now do in Studio and therefore do it on BroadWorks in a very, very simple way. Okay, and there it is. It's presented there on the screen. Really simple interaction. We're going to come in at the start. If you haven't seen this interface before, this is what we call a canvas, and these boxes on the screen are called nodes, and you can basically just click on these nodes and change them to whatever you like to do. So in this case, this is a really simple identification and verification approach. It's using standard wallet questions. So we're going to play a welcome message at the start, and then we're going to ask them for their user ID. So this might be like their customer number, for example. We're then going to capture their date of birth, so they can either say or key that in. We're then going to capture their social security number, so their last 4 digits of their social, for example, and we're going to look up the user in a database. Okay, so really straightforward identification, verification, but something you can't do natively, say on a BroadWorks switch. You couldn't use, for example, the BroadWorks auto attendant to do this. It's just too complicated. Then we're going to check that the user actually exists, and if the user does exist in the system, we're going to then transfer them through to a call center, and that call center is going to be a call center where verified callers are sent through. If we don't find them in our list, we're going to say, no, we don't have you, and get them to re-enter their details until we find them, or let them request an agent, and then we'll transfer them through to a queue where they're not verified. So pretty straightforward idea here. Now the important part of it is that anything here we can change. So if I wanted to change this user ID capture point, I could just click on the edit part here, and I could change this to whatever we wanted it to do. So in this case, we're capturing a digit string, and the value that we're going to enter in, we're going to call that entered user ID. But if we wanted to change this to please key in your customer number, I could just go to the prompt tab here, and rather than say please enter your user ID followed by the pound key, I could actually change this to please enter your customer number, for example. So I could just change that. Please enter your customer number followed by the pound key. And that's as simple as that. That is now live, and we've changed that on the platform. Okay, really straightforward. Okay, so getting the script up and running is really, really quick. All we need to now do is assign this a service number, and it is live on your network. It's completely on net because it's using those SIP trunks that we talked about earlier that are connecting your platform through to the Inference Studio platform. What I want to focus on is the 3 use cases that I talked about before. So the first one was using biometrics for identification and verification, and so I already created that service here. So if I click on that one there, and you can see it's already been assigned a phone number, so if anyone wants to ring it while they're waiting, they can ring that phone number and they'll actually hear this service. It's live. And basically, again, this is using a template to create the service. And it's got a little comment note in here that kind of tells you how it works. It says, this is a biometric enrollment template. Each user is required to have a unique identifier. The identifier is then associated with the voice print, and in this case we use a 4-digit employee ID. But again, we can change this to whatever we like. So if people are wondering how, not that familiar with biometrics and wondering how it works, basically there's two parts to it. The first part is you capture a voice print, and that's the enrollment process. So this is typically you saying your name 3 times, or it could be saying your employee ID 3 times, or reading out a card number that you have 3 times. We do it 3 times because we're taking the average of those and we're converting that into a voice print. Okay, so you enroll once, and then next time when you ring back into the call center, we determine that you have a voice print, and we say, okay, rather than having to do all these wallet questions again with the agent, we're just going to allow you to say your name or your employee ID or your membership number or card number, and we're going to authenticate you against your voice print and let you through to an authenticated queue. Okay. And so this script here is actually the biometric enrollment application. So we play a little introduction message, we capture the ID of the caller, and then we give them some instructions about how they need to enroll their voice. Okay. We then do the enrollment, we store the print, and we test it so that we know that next time they ring in, they're going to be ready to go. Okay. We check the quality of that print, and if it's good, we say, okay, the process is finished, and that's the end of the call. Otherwise, we get them to re-enroll until we get a good quality print in case there's some background noise and that sort of stuff. Okay. So what I'm going to do is actually just go through the enrollment process and show you how quickly it would be to set up somebody using voice biometrics. And let me just ring that on my phone.
Hi there. Welcome to the Voice Biometric Enrollment Service. Key in your 4-digit identifier. Thanks. We now need to capture 3 utterances of you speaking your name. Let's begin. Please say your name and then press the pound key.
Callan Shabella.
We have captured your first utterance. There are 2 remaining. Please say your name again and then press the pound key.
Callan Shabella.
We have captured your second utterance. Please say your name one more time and then press the pound key.
Callan Shabella.
The voice print has been created and stored. To complete your enrollment, let's test your voice print. Please say your name and then press the pound key.
Callan Shabella.
The verification result is good. Thank you. You are now set up to use the voice biometric service. Goodbye.
So that phone call takes about 1 minute, and then they're enrolled, and then they're enrolled for all time effectively. So now they can ring back and they can go through this verification process in about 10 seconds. It's very, very fast to say your voice print, you'll say it, we'll check it, and if they're good, pass them through to the agent. So not only have you taken that workload off of the agent and put it into the IVR, but you've also reduced the overall length of the interaction entirely by getting this verification down to a very, very short period, and improve the security, because now just having someone's wallet is not enough for me to get through the biometrics system. I actually have to speak exactly like them to get through the biometrics application. So just one example how you can basically get that feature parity or get that identification verification process as part of your cloud offering. Okay. Now, the next one that we looked at was proactive customer care. So in this case, it was an outbound reminder. So it might be a reminder to pay your bill, it might be a reminder to pick up your prescription, it might be a reminder that you have an appointment, for example. And I've just used, again, I've used a template within Studio, which is the appointment reminder template, and I'll just click on that one there. And you can see in this case, it says play the intro message and check to see if we're speaking to the right person. Then we play the introduction message. We check the customer. They say, "Are you Callan?" In my case, I say, "Yes, I am Callan." So this is outbound, of course. And then we say, "Okay, we have the right customer, and we want to confirm the appointment." Again, this is quite a large script, but none of this I've actually had to design. This is all just part of the template. And if I wanted to change any aspect of this script, just like I showed with the other example, I can go in and I can click on any of these things and change the nodes to be whatever we want to do. So it's not an appointment reminder, but it's a prescription reminder. Just change the prompts that relate to appointments to reflect prescription. And again, very easy to try. In this case, what I'm going to do is, rather than ring into this application, I'm actually going to have this application ring me, because this is meant to be proactive customer care. So the way we do that in Studio, if you're not familiar, is to go up to Connect which is our dialer, and we go to what's called a campaign. Now, we can have either a list-based campaign where we're uploading a list of like an Excel spreadsheet and say ring all these people, or the more powerful versions, what we call an on-demand campaign, where we actually publish a web service, and then every time you call the web service, we make a single phone call. So if I actually go and have a look at the on-demand campaigns here, you can see here that I've already created a campaign called Outbound Reminder for Webinar. And we're going to allow up to 2 simultaneous phone calls. We call those threads in Studio. We're going to try for 20 seconds before we give up on the caller. And again, you can define your redial rules and so forth as to what happens if you get somebody's voicemail or answering machine detection, or they're busy or something like that. And on the right-hand side, there's an action menu, and one of the options here is to make a call. So this is just to test the actual application itself. So I'm going to make a call to myself. So that's my phone number. I'm going to put in my customer name. So this is Callan. We're going to say my appointment is at 10 a.m. And if I need to change my appointment, we're going to transfer to this number. I'm going to pass in my customer ID, and I'm going to pass in my own phone number as well. Now, for a real web service call, these numbers will obviously all be different, but because I'm just demonstrating it here on the desk here, we've only got the one phone, so I've just set all the numbers to the same. So essentially what I'm doing is passing in parameters to personalize each call. So I want to, for example, greet the caller and ask them if their name is Callan. So let's try that out now. So I'm going to say make a call. And it says a call will be made shortly. So that's going into the dialing queue, and there's my phone ringing.
Hi there. This is a call from our company. If this is Callan, please press 1. Otherwise, press 2. Thanks. We are calling to remind you that you have an appointment at 10 a.m. today. If you are able to keep this appointment, please press 1. Otherwise, thanks. See you soon. Goodbye.
So it's a really simple interaction, but you'd be surprised just how important that sort of interaction is for many, many businesses, because this is literally driving their revenue. If they do not make these calls and people do not show for these appointments, or they do not pick up their prescriptions, or they do not renew their subscriptions, that is a big driver as to why they would be able to go with your platform or not go with your platform, because their existing premise-based platform does this for them today. Okay. So that was, again, a really simple, very fast interaction, and the entire thing to build that would literally be about 5 minutes. That's all it takes, just copying from a template again. Okay, and then the third one that we used was a hold my place in the queue functionality. So we know at this time of the year, a lot of the end customers of our carriers, their call volumes, particularly if they're in retail, might be going to 100% increase, 200, 300%. I've seen one customer has 1,000% increase at this time of year because of just, they're in the retail trade, their stores are getting much more foot traffic. People are wanting to know which stores are open. They're wanting to call. They want to ask about products. How do you manage all of this in an environment that is not necessarily set up to operate with this sort of volume all the time, because it only happens for a few weeks per year? Well, Q4Me, which is our virtual queuing platform, allows you to do that. So the way that Q4Me works is it basically allows you to have your place held in the queue, and it asks you if you would like your place held in the queue. So it uses Studio to do the actual booking of what we call a waiter. And then if you say, yes, I would like a waiter to wait on my behalf in the queue, this is the script that actually triggers all of that. And again, it's quite a big script, but just as with the others, it's not something you're actually building yourself. For the most part, most bookings of Q4Me waiters are very straightforward, and it's just all about confirming, have we got the right number to call you back on? Are you sure you want to have your place held in the queue? And do we want to tell you how long the queue is actually going to be? So is it going to be a 30-minute wait? Is it going to be a 5-minute wait? And so on. So again, this interaction we're looking at here on the screen has just been developed from a template. Again, less than 5 minutes to do the entire thing. We're going to play the introduction message. We get the current wait time using the Broadworks Extended Services interface, so we actually know how long the queue is going to be, and then we read that wait time out to the caller. Okay. We check that there's some waiters available to wait on behalf of the customers because we license this product on a per waiter basis. You can buy them in groups of 5 waiters. We check if the waiter is available. We ask them if the customer would like a callback. If they say, yes, I would like a callback, we're going to go and book that callback. So the first thing we have to do there is check that we have a phone number. Are they presenting a phone number to us? If they are presenting a phone number to us, an ANI, is this the phone number they want to be called back on? Yes, it is. If they're not presenting a phone number to us, we need to ask them what phone number they want to be called back on, because if we're calling from a private number, we're not going to be able to ring them back unless they tell us what number. We're going to confirm the number back to them. We're going to confirm that the number is correct, and then we're basically going to book the callback. Okay, so it looks quite large in the canvas, but the actual interaction is very, very quick. So let's do that. Let's ring this application.
Welcome to the callback booking service. The expected wait time is 5 minutes. If you would like to book a callback from an agent, please press 1. To return to the queue, press 2. Your phone number is 4155352229. If this number is correct, press 1. To enter a different phone number for your call, press 2. Your callback has been booked. You will receive a call from an agent when you are at the front of the queue. Thank you for using this service. Have a great day. Goodbye.
So there you go. We've booked a callback. We've booked it in about, if we weren't listening to all of those prompts, we probably would have booked it in under 20 seconds. In that case, it was 30 seconds for the entire call. And we've gone through that entire call flow that you're seeing here on the screen. So we've gone through here. We've checked the waiters available. We've asked them for a callback. They've said yes. They were presenting a number, we confirmed the number, yes, and all of that. So that whole thing, even though it looks quite large on the screen, is under 30 seconds. Okay, so what's happened there? Well, basically, if we go back now and we go back to the portal and we look at the other link that we have in portal, which is Queue for Me, this is actually where all the waiters are doing their job. And you can see here that we have a queue called Sample Contact Center Queue, and this queue has 2 waiters assigned to it, and we've now just consumed one of those waiters. So this is the waiter here, and it is now waiting in that queue, and when an agent becomes available, I'm going to get a call back on my phone that I specified there. So, very, 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 very easy to understand, very, very easy to sell, particularly to customers that are using this functionality within their business already, and they're looking for equivalent functionality from their cloud provider. Okay, and if we actually want to go in and look at that in some more detail, we can actually say here, okay, show me the actual the waiters. There's the waiters there, and we've got one waiter that's waiting right now. There it is, the phone number that it's going to ring back on when it gets triggered, the queue that it's sitting in, when it was created, and because we don't have actually any agents sitting on this queue, and I don't really want to call back, I can actually just go in here and I can delete this waiter and get rid of it. So it's now freed up. But essentially, that's it. That's Queue for Me, again, delivered in under 5 minutes. And the other thing here is that it's all these calls are on net. These are all going over your SIP trunks. They're all terminating on your Broadworks application servers, and they're all appearing on your customers' bills, which is a very important part of this. All right, so we're just going to switch back to the slides again. All right, so let's just walk through it again. Identification and verification, we showed it using voice biometrics. Proactive customer care, we built an outbound service, reminder service, and this was appointment reminders in our case. And queue management, so we used Queue for Me to do a Queue for Me booking and receive a callback, although we didn't obviously receive the callback because I deleted it. But again, we've built all of those things in under 15 minutes. Okay, so that's really all we wanted to show for the session today. If you'd like to find out more, you can find out a lot more at our website, inferencesolutions.com. Looking at the list of people on the webinar today, I can see a lot of them are current service provider customers, and so you would already have an Inference account manager within our company. But if you don't, and if you are one of the people I can see on the list that are not current customers, you can reach out to either Greg Callanan, who's our head of sales. His details are there on the screen, or reach out to myself, Callan, I'm the CEO. Greg is based in Maryland. I'm based in San Francisco, so you can pick the time zone that suits you best.